When I was 14 years old, I lived with my
What up,
mom,
y'all?
dad, two brothers, and my
What up?
sister in a rural town in Florida.
All right. What's up? It's J-Rock, and we are about to react to the horror story. You see the screen right now? Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. 3 thunderstorms horror stories. And this time I seen when I searched that Mr. Nightmare, the poster of this video, had made multiple videos of the same thing. And in fact, I've been through so many horror stories. No, not horror stories. Thunderstorms in my life. I can't make a story about them. I just know that stuff like power outages, high wind, and just a bunch of stuff that you would expect in the thunderstorm. But anyway, let's get it. All right, try to scare me.
When I was 14 years old, I lived with my mom, dad, two brothers, and my sister in a rural town in Florida. Overall, I miss living in Florida, but the one thing I don't miss was the constant rain. On one particular stormy Saturday night, where the
In
thunder was
Florida,
so
the
loud it
Sunshine
shook the
State.
whole house, me and my two brothers had nothing to do. My sister was out at a friend's house. Me and my two brothers decided to play some video games to pass the time. It was only 8 o'clock after all. I remember we were playing some weird PS2 game where all the WWE wrestlers were driving cars and shooting at each other. I don't remember the name, but I remember the exact moment the power went out. I was about to kill my brother in the game when the room went completely dark and the sound of something popping from
One of my pet peeves in life, period. Sometimes it could be a sunny day, hot, and the power goes out. Who who would tolerate that? Me, I would not tolerate it. If I had my phone plugged and the power goes out, and I would say like, thank God I have my phone charged, and all of a sudden something goes off. I read it. They mention power outages in the following areas, and if they say my area on the list, I just be like, "Oh, great, we're on the list." The transformer on power lines need better strength. I heard that it has about 22,000 volts, enough to power up a whole house, and that's a fact right there. I just don't like that. Second thing I don't like about thunderstorms is just the pure lightning. And third, um, it lasts long. Like it could go do through the night and then through the next day and still no power. Like the severe thunderstorm is so bad that it's like a hurricane. And I've been through many hurricanes, but man, oh my god. Let's just get in. Let's get back into it.
outside echoed into the room.
Who?
Eve Online on Mac immerses you in a universe with thousands of star systems like never before. Follow a path of your own choosing.
We assumed a fuse had blown
I hate
outside
that
on one of
sound.
the power lines. We went to call for our
The
dad, who was
Transformer
already
has
getting his
gone.
rain jacket on to go outside and check. Our house has 2 fuse boxes, one outside attached to the telephone pole on our lawn, and one inside.
Lucky enough, tired of the pausing. First of all, I was shocked that sometimes people wait and wait just to get their generator ready, and they have another generator. It powers up your whole house back when it loses power. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How much is this? It's like either a used car or the generator. I just don't know the name. I know some neighbors around my area have that. And I'm like, they are so lucky. They are so lucky. If you know the generator I'm talking about, it powers up your house right after the transformer dies or gets struck by lightning on, like, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just sick of storms. I wish it could just rain and rain and rain, and then sunshine will follow. That's why I watch the clouds before I claim the storm. But severe ones, I don't tolerate them.
He asked me to go outside with him to aim a flashlight at the fuse box. When we were outside, he opened up the fuse box and began flicking around the different switches, hoping to reset something. He tried every switch, but the power didn't seem to come back on. He told me to wait there and to keep flicking switches while he went inside to do the same thing with the indoor fuse box. The rain was coming down hard. I just wanted to go inside as soon as possible. As I had the flashlight in my hand aimed into the fuse box, even through the sound of rain pounding down on the ground, I thought I heard something come from the woods behind our house, like a giant log cracking. I aimed the flashlight into the woods, and for maybe half a second, I thought I saw an arm reaching around from behind a tree. But as soon as the light exposed it, the arm pulled away behind the tree. I shut the fuse box, ran up the front patio, and into the house. I ran to my dad, who was tampering with the switches inside the fuse box in the closet. He entertained my claim, but he didn't seem to take what I said very seriously. He followed me outside around back, where I aimed the flashlight into the woods, the same spot I saw the arm. My dad took the flashlight from me and made his way into the woods. I stayed by the back patio in total darkness. Pretty soon my dad went so deep into the woods that I couldn't see the
I'm never
flashlight
going
anymore.
into the woods unless I'm going
Growing
hunting.
nervous, I inched my way closer to the woods, repeatedly calling out for my dad, until I found myself walking into the woods. It was hard to even hear myself think over the sound of rain pouring down on the leaves above, but I did suddenly hear footsteps not too far away. Once again, I called out for my dad, and I heard him answer. This made me panic. Why, you may be wondering? Because my dad's voice came from a completely different direction than the footsteps. I ran in the direction of my dad's voice and eventually found him walking back to the house. Out of breath, I barely managed to tell him about the footsteps over in the other direction. He told me to go back inside and he'll continue to look around, and so I went inside and locked the door. Me, my brothers, and my mom all waited by the back door, expecting to see him come out of the woods any second. Eventually, we heard someone at the front door trying to open the locked door. I went over, expecting it to be my dad, but my mom stopped me and looked through the peephole. Then she screamed. She ushered me away from the door and told all of us to go upstairs, and at that same moment, my dad came back into the house through the back door. I didn't see the rest of what happened, but I heard my dad yelling at someone outside. When he came back in, he told all of us he saw someone running into the woods. I knew he was taking...
Alright. Right now, my ideas are going in circles. Like, I don't know which direction to go with right now. So, first off, I didn't get, like, it could be like I heard the part when the dad went into the woods for whatever reason. Second, he mentioned the fact that he came out from a different direction. I'm like, hold up. To me, there's probably somebody that ain't your dad. Could be that person that made his wife scream like a burglar. Like, bruh. See why I don't tolerate power outages? What if you run on pure electricity? Or with some of my folks, they run on gas. That's what some people do. You go ahead and Google why I mentioned a house running on gas because it's a gas powered house that turns it to electricity, and the hashtag for this could be hydroelectricity like the Hawaiians do. And no, I'm not in Hawaii. I'm in one of the 48 states. I'm just saying. But still, some states do use hydroelectricity or hydropower. Come on, let's get back in.
Taking this seriously now. We thought it would end there, but the next morning, we found that the basement window had been smashed, and there were muddy footprints all over the basement carpet. A large wad of cash that was sitting on the basement bar was stolen, along with a few antique decorations that held some value. The scary part was that the muddy footsteps went up the stairs, but stopped there. Our basement door had a very heavy-duty lock, which may be the only thing that stopped this man from exploring the rest of our house, possibly even our bedrooms.
I knew it was another man than the dad. I knew it. It had to be.
It's been a pretty rough couple of nights over here in Midwest. Flood warnings are replaced with thunderstorm watches. Thunderstorm watches are followed up by tornado warnings. And even sirens add a nice touch to this surreal nightly experience. I used to enjoy a good thunderstorm. You get yourself comfortable on a couch, grab an extra pillow with a blanket, cuddle up, and enjoy the show of grace and might. Lightning bolts ripping through the sky, illuminating clouds.
The only lightning that I would like if I'm on the road and we have a long distance to go. Like, say that I was going from, I say maybe South Louisiana to I guess maybe not Pascagoula, but Pensacola, Florida. Yeah, because they get a lot of rain. Florida has a lot of rain, and they nicknamed it the Sunshine State. Like, I'm like, why? It's raining right now. But anyway, like, if you're in a car and or a truck, hey, and they mentioned that evacuation is advised or you have to evacuate, and somebody stops you. In fact, don't stop. Don't let anybody else in. Just let anybody that you know in. I would let my family members and my real friends, because my real friends would know it like my family. I'll say, what's my name? What's my favorite color? Or something like, what's my favorite football team? And y'all see the answer in here. It's in your face.
Houses and tree lines, the sound wave coming with a tad of delay, shaking the window frames and sending a strange tingle through your body. Nature is a powerful force, and it was majestic to see it in action. Until tonight. The forecast was promising a late-night thunderstorm, so I was caught by surprise when I started seeing flashes outside around midnight. Since I wasn't prepared for it, I tried to quickly finish up the Orange is the New Black episode and get myself to the couch. When I got my headphones off, I realized why the flashes seemed so odd at first. There was no sound to follow them. I mean, if the lightning is in the clouds or pretty...
Look, that's the kind of lightning I would deal with, even if I'm here, home. All right, look, I seen lightning, but no thunder. All right, fine, because anyway, I'm astrophobic myself. So I could just tolerate it before you hear the Big Bang. And I ain't talking about the Big Bang Theory, but it's still a show I watch. You know.
Far away, then yeah, I guess the sound could be missing, but the flashes seemed so close. I decided to check out the sky of the kitchen window. There's a pair of large glass panels that give you a good wide-angle view to the outside. To keep my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I stayed away from flipping the switches on and traveled through the house relying on my memory. The moonless darkness of outside gives you that eerie feeling, even if you are inside of the safe walls of your house. But those are just the feelings, nothing else. If it wasn't for the glass, the pitch-black darkness of both sides made me feel like the safe walls surrounding me no longer exist, and that feel of safety was slowly crawling away. But the walls did shatter when I glanced up high into the sky, and my eyes met the twinkly stars staring back at me. There were no clouds. There was no thunderstorm with lightning. No, there wasn't. But the next flash, right from the other side of the window pane, did reveal that there was someone 5 feet away from me, and nothing but a thin glass sheet was separating us apart. In the year 2009, I was spending a weekend with my uncle on his ranch when my parents were renovating the new house we had just bought. It was my second night there, a Saturday, and it happened to be during one of the biggest thunderstorms of the year. I'd say there were at least 3 crashes of thunder and lightning per minute, and we were in the heart of the storm because the thunder would crash not even a second.
Pausing. Listen, these are the states that get the worst thunderstorms. If you have Central Time or Central Daylight Time, because this is the time of the year they have longer daytime and shorter nighttime. You gotta be in a state that has Central Time, like Central Time Zone. Check the time zones, and you see your state with it. You're gonna have a thunderstorm soon, later, or if you're lucky enough, maybe not. I'm just having a theory right there. Cause it's like that show I was watching, showing which states get the tornadoes, like which tornado alley. Yeah, Tornado Alley. It's on the Weather Channel. I watch a lot of that. Yeah, that's how I get my knowledge on weather and meteorology.
After the lightning would. I always enjoyed listening to storms while laying in bed, so I stayed up a little later watching TV, just enjoying the ambiance. After the movie I was watching finally ended, I turned off the TV and tried to fall asleep.
Good thing I was ready for
As I
that.
heard the lightning strike from outside. I could have sworn I heard some kind of metallic thud coming from outside at the same time. I didn't pay it too much mind.
All right, let me listen.
20 seconds later.
Yep. Somebody
I could have sworn I heard it again. A very distinct metallic thud coming from outside to match the timing of the lightning. I really don't mean to make this sound like a cliche horror story, but my uncle really is a kind of creepy guy, and I was never close with him even remotely. So for that reason, I didn't feel right going to wake him up. I just tried to forget about it. Now I was getting concerned. What the hell could that be?
Yeah, why?
After the
What?
third time, I finally got out of bed and walked over to the window of the guest bedroom. The water pouring down on the window made it extra hard to see what was out there in the dark fields. A flash of lightning momentarily lit up the property, but I couldn't see anything. However, once again, the sound of a metal hit accompanied it. The sound was so close now, it sounded like it was coming from the left of the window at a blind spot. I was going to do something I knew my uncle wouldn't be happy about. It would be a bit messy, but I was going to open the window and peer outside to see if I could see what the sound was. I unhooked the window lock and slid it up, and immediately the wind of the storm blew drops of rain in.
Don't do anything stupid in any type of thunderstorm. Don't do anything stupid like opening a window. Cause look, where do you wanna like back away from the window? Because if they say there's lightning in the area, then I got that on my phone. And it can tell me when there's lightning, where's the lightning, and how far away am I from the lightning area. So that's why I stay away from windows. Go to a secure room. Like I follow the rules that I learned from. But I think this dude learned or prepared. I just prepared, and while we still got power, I'm just gonna be ready. And let's get this last story out. It ain't gonna be the last story. Wait, this ain't the last story. I'm gonna get caught up with Mr. Nightmare because he, repeatedly posted.
And on to me.
That I missed.
I stuck my head out the window and looked to the left. And at that very moment, lightning lit up the property once again, and I could see a person dressed in all black crouched down by the outside basement door with his hand raised in the air.
Of course.
And before the sky went dark, I caught the briefest glimpse of what the sound was coming from. The person was bashing at the basement door lock. I pulled my head in and quietly shut the window, making sure to lock it. I was in a panic. I feared he might have seen or heard me. I ran back to bed and pretended to be asleep, facing away from the window. Lightning crashed once again, but this time there was no metallic thud. My heart must have dropped as I realized this. I just stayed put in bed for the longest time, hoping whoever was out there would go away. After maybe 3 more lightning crashes without any thuds accompanying them, I thought it would be safe to go tell my uncle. I turned to face the window and screamed. There was a figure, clear as day, standing at the window, looking in at me. I screamed as loud as I could and ran straight to my uncle's room. He went outside with his hunting rifle with nothing on but his pajamas, not even socks.
Strap.
He ran around the entire property yelling like a madman, but didn't find anyone. The next morning, we were able to better see the marks on the basement door lock. It was almost bashed open. Maybe 3 or 4 more good hits would have done it, according to my uncle. He was proud of me for picking up on it. Luckily, I was out of there that same day. My uncle hasn't told us of any incidents since, so I think he's been okay. Not that we talked to him much at all. I'm grateful I stayed up a little later that night watching that movie, because I may have just stopped a robbery, or possibly much worse.
Yeah. Just a delay on reporting. I think that's the first time he posted the 2 thunderstorms. All right. Now we're going to this one. Here, 3 scary true thunderstorm horror stories.
You're 1 sentence away from launching your website with Base 44. Since the beginning of the internet, there's never been such a fun, fast, and intelligent.
I was checking this. Hold up. All right.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it.
Really?
Meet
Hey.
Base 44.
You know how we do? Let's get in it. Get your
I've always
headphones
loved
on.
thunderstorms ever since I was a kid, and so does my 6-year-old son. Anytime there's a storm, my son and I will sit in the backyard under the gazebo and just watch and listen. This was on a hot, stormy August night in
Dangerous
Florida.
thing to
As
do.
soon as we heard the first strike of lightning in the living room, my son jumped up and said, "Let's go sit outside." I followed him outside, where we ran from the back door to the gazebo, getting pretty wet on the way. It was already pouring. I have a nice setup under my backyard gazebo.
Anyway, I have a question. How old are you and how old is this kid? Like, really? You're gonna go outside with lightning, thunder, and super heavy rain? Well, I can't raise anybody else's kids, but this is just a story. So let's just get into it some more.
It has a mini bar, a few wicker sofas, a TV, and mini fire pit. As we usually would, I turned on the fire pit and TV, and my son and I just laid back and relaxed, listening to the sound of the pouring rain and constant thunder. The thunder would get louder and louder as we sat out
be
there.
inside.
And the time between the flashes of lightning and cracks of thunder was getting shorter and shorter. The bulk of the storm was getting closer to us. The lightning was getting so bright and frequent that it was genuinely starting to light up the entire backyard anytime it flashed.
That's
My
why you
backyard
gotta
is
stay
big,
inside.
with
So you
woods
won't get
covering
struck.
two edges of it. Perhaps after the biggest flash of lightning yet, my son squealed and pointed out towards the backyard. "What?" I said, to which he said he saw someone standing in the backyard. I stood up and walked to the edge of the gazebo. I couldn't see anything in the dark, so I was waiting for another flash of lightning. The next few flashes of lightning were too small to fully see into the yard, but when the next earth-rumbling flash of lightning struck, I saw what he meant. There was someone indeed standing out in my backyard by the woods. I told my son to go rush inside and turn on the backyard lights. He did so without question, and I stood in place waiting. About 10 seconds later, all of the backyard lights were on, but I didn't see the person way out in my backyard anymore. I waited for more lightning to maybe help see. But even with the lightning, I didn't see them anymore. They were gone. He, she, whatever, I didn't know. All I knew was that there was someone walking around my yard, and that didn't sit right with me. I went inside the house and locked all the doors, but kept the backyard lights on. I even turned on the front yard lights too. I didn't want to tell my wife, but my son had already done so anyway. So when she was all concerned and asking if we should phone the police, I lied to her and told her I saw the person out there leave. She asked if it was a man or woman, to which I replied woman, as it sounded less scary. For the rest of the night, the three of us watched a movie in the living room, with the storm still overhead.
Gonna go out,
Eventually, it was my son's
I
bedtime,
bet.
so my wife tucked him in and then came back to the living room, and we started watching something else. We still heard the thunder outside. Eventually, I went back to the den to turn off the outside lights, front and backyard.
Kicking up the dirt as I pull up my skirt. When I walk by, they all on alert. Eeny, meeny, many more, you could be first. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Jaywalk. Jaywalk.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app with Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
When I went up to the living room, my son was standing at his bedroom door, scared, saying there's someone at his window. My wife and I looked at each other and yelled, "What?" I pulled him away from his doorway, and then I stood at the doorway, looking at the window, waiting for the lightning. When the lightning struck, no one was at his window, but I believed him. Someone was out there, that much was already established. I told my wife and child to stay inside while I go out and look, even though my wife didn't want me to do that. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and stormed out into the rain after turning all the lights back on. I started in the front of the house, then worked my way to the side, then the back. I looked under the tables, in the gazebo, under the deck, and when I thought the backyard was clear, the last side to check was the right side of the house. I would begin to walk towards the side of the house. and instantly saw a person in a hood, but I only saw half of their face and head. They were peering around the corner of the house. Most of their face and all of their body was hidden behind the wall. If I had to guess, I'd say it looked more like a man. I screamed, but I also ran in that direction with the bat raised up. The person disappeared behind the corner. When I made it past that corner, they were gone. Even with all the lights on, I didn't see anyone there. I went back inside and told the two of them that it was okay, that I chased the man away. But my wife did not like to hear that it was a man. I made sure to close all the blinds in the house now. Luckily, we weren't bothered again by that man. My son slept in our bed with us that night just because he was so scared, and I understand why. I didn't see it, but I can only imagine how scarring it was to see a man standing at his window at the young age of 6.
So luckily the power ain't go out on his behalf. So cool. I just didn't like the fact that there was lightning and it went outside. Like, come on, man. Be smart about it. You got a 6-year-old. I know you're a father and all, but listen to the rules and think about survival.
The city in which I live almost never gets any rainfall, so when we do, it's a pretty exciting thing. The kids like to go out and play around, the farmers are thankful that their crops will thrive, and it's just a nice piece of scenery. The last time there was a big thunderstorm, my friends and I were all playing some game together, though I can't remember which one it was. I knew the thunderstorm was rolling in when everybody's microphone played the same sound of the first thunder, and it was big. When I heard it, I thought it was a gunshot or firework. Then I saw the lightning outside my window and hopped over to my bed to see the storm forming. What I saw was much more unsettling. Across the street from me was a man. He wore a gray hoodie and some jeans. He looked fairly tall, though not too muscular, and he was just standing there. I couldn't tell if he was looking at me or not, as his face was obscured. Then he started to walk down the street, so he wasn't looking at me. I felt relieved, yet still a bit paranoid. I got back on the game with my friends, and we continued to play. About 15 minutes later, the storm had fully started. I told the 4 of them I was leaving to go watch the storm, and I'd be back in a while. I walked out front and stood under the porch, watching as the lightning flashed and the rain struck the ground in a soothing rhythm. Then I looked down the street to my left, and there he was, the man, standing at the corner of the street. I was scared a bit, but I still had my head trying to reason this out. It's not uncommon for townspeople to stand out in the rain. It is a rare occurrence after all, so I paid little attention to it. After about 5 more minutes, I decided to go back inside. As I opened the door, I turned to where the man had stood. He was gone now, which made for a more eerie scene. I walked inside, where 2 of my little siblings were dancing to a Bubble Guppies song. My other 2 siblings were in their rooms, doing who knows what. I went back to my room, but instead of playing the game again, I decided to go do something else. Though I didn't know what to do. Then I heard the all too familiar buzzing of my phone when I received a text. I picked it up and opened the messenger. It was an unknown number. It had sent me 2 texts. The first read, "Have you forgotten?" And the next read, "I know you didn't." My first thoughts were the man that I had seen outside, but then I thought of how slim those chances were. How would he have gotten my number? Why would he target me for whatever he was trying to do? I decided my friends were pulling a prank on me and decided to check. I went to the group chat and asked if anyone had been prank texting me. They all swore that they weren't, though it's hard to tell over text if they were lying. I decided to believe them and went to watch TV. Some time had passed, how long exactly I don't remember, when there came a ring at the door. It was way too late for visitors, so who could this be? Maybe the postal service? I checked the time on my phone, 12:19, definitely too late for visitors. I peered through my blinds in an effort to see who it was, but I couldn't.
Serious dictation was driving me crazy, so I switched to whisper flow. Here's why I'll never go back.
The rain was coming down so hard it was like a blanket of mist was everywhere. Then one of the gunshot thunders sounded. My head slammed into the window, making a thud sound. There was movement by the door. It was a person running off. I could only assume it was the man from earlier. No, I knew it was the man from earlier. How could these events not all add up? I wanted to call the cops, but I had no proof the man had been there. He just left without a trace. I decided to try and sleep and got about 3 hours worth when a gunshot thunder woke me up. I shot up, then froze. I never lacked.
He said he had a nap about 3 hours. Oh, that's close to my average. My average is about 3.
A little when another loud bang
About 3
sounded,
hours.
but this one
Hour
wasn't
nap.
thunder. This one came from my window. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't let whoever was out there know I was awake. But what if they knew? I decided to just take a peek through my blinds. What I saw next was probably the scariest thing I'd ever seen. It was the man with his hands pressed against the window, and I could only assume he was staring at me. The scariest part was his mouth. His eyes were mainly covered in shadow, but there was enough light to see his mouth, and it was smiling. It was such a big, maniacal smile I didn't even know was possible for a human to make. Then he stood and left. Just like that, he walked into the rainy night from which he came. I sat awake in my chair, but I guess I fell asleep somewhere along the road. When I woke, I was confused as to why I was in my chair. Then I remembered the previous night's events, and I darted to the window for whatever reason. When I pulled the blinds up, there was one thing I could see. A small piece of paper taped to my window. On it were 3 words that have now haunted my dreams. Have you forgotten? I haven't had any further experience with the man, and I hope I don't have to.
What could he have forgotten? That's my question. Like, what could it be? Like, forgotten? Like, shoot. Let me try. What could the father have forgotten? Did he check his mail or
It was a
something?
night
You see, let's talk about. I'm really trying to think that because, like, did he check his mail? Check your messages? Bruh, if anything like that happens to me in my future, I'm moving the hell out where I'm at. Or if I'm in the car, in any weather condition, and you got your thumbs up, I'm passing you.
I was working late. The weather outside was awful, and I was just leaving my job to go home.
The right
about
words
12
for
a.m.
it. The weather around you is awful.
During a thunderstorm. I used to drive a 2005 Ford Fusion, a little car not ideal for crappy weather and roads. I was taking my usual route home, and the rain was so bad that even having the windshield wipers on the highest setting didn't help that much. I still could barely see. I was going 40 miles per hour on a 55 mile per hour road. That's how bad it was. There were no other cars around me, and when I least expected it, through the water building up too quickly for my wipers to handle, thus partially blocking my view, I saw someone dressed in white running across the road from one side of the woods to the other. I saw them almost too late. I had to slam on the brakes and swerve to avoid hitting them. I swerved and lost control onto the grass before crashing head-on into a tree. The airbag deployed and my whole body jerked forward into it. I couldn't even believe what just happened at first. I was in shock. I knew immediately my car was totaled, but when I slowly started to accept what just happened, I started to look around my car for the person that just ran across the road randomly. I was currently in the middle of a quiet highway with no buildings nearby for miles and no cars to be seen. There should have been no one walking around here, especially in this weather this late. It was a work night and extremely late, so I was nervous nobody would pick up. The first person I called was my brother, who didn't pick up after several attempts. He was definitely asleep. I tried my sister next with equal results. I didn't want to have to involve either of my parents in this, but with no other option, I called my dad on his house phone, which was sure to wake him up. He picked up on the last ring, and I explained the situation. I told him I'd need assistance and didn't know what number to call for a tow. After ensuring that I was okay and that I had no injuries, he gave me the number for our family's roadside assistance company to call. He said he'd get dressed and drive over to me. His house was about 10 to 15 minutes away. My dad...
Good job. Now you're going to have a little problem, like a little bit of a problem, like about this much, but trying to save this dude's life, I know. Uh, just putting my opinion out. I'm not hating. I just hate the weather. That's all. I hate it. And I was expecting rain from right now, but it ain't raining now.
Also told me to get out of the car to look for whoever was crossing
Just
the street
comment what
and to keep
weather
my
it
doors
is right
locked.
now.
When we hung up, I stayed in the car, nervously looking around every window, though not seeing much because of the pouring rain.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. You just need a concept and a way to record it.
I truly was so scared that I was about to piss my pants, knowing someone was out there, wondering if they intentionally ran in front of my car. I called our roadside assistance company, and they were sending a tow truck right away. About 10 minutes passed since the phone call with my dad now, and I texted my dad, "Are you on your way yet?" He texted back, "Yes." I had my hazards on, though I'm sure the car being ran into a tree would help enough in finding me. I turned to my right, as if I instinctively knew someone was there, and I jumped out of my seat and screamed at the top of my lungs as I felt like my heart dropped out of my body. There was a soaking wet man in white, looking into my car with his mouth hung open in an O shape and his eyes squinted. He then put his hands on the glass and started to rub the windows. I didn't know what he was doing, but I yelled at him to go away. He started to try opening the locked door, and when it wouldn't open, he started to pound his fists on the glass. He did all of this with his mouth still hanging open in that weird O shape. I didn't know what to do other than call my dad again. He picked up, and I basically cried into the phone that there was a random man trying to get into my car. My dad screamed into the phone not to open the doors, and that he's almost here.
That's the first step.
He stayed on the line with me
lock your
as the man
doors.
outside started to hit the window with his elbow, causing me to scream, and my dad to panic into the phone. Surprisingly, the glass didn't shatter, and as if my prayers were answered, I saw headlights approaching from down the road and pull up behind my car. The man outside looked to the other car, which happened to be my dad's, and as my dad stepped out of his car and charged at this creep, the creep tried to run away into the woods, but my dad tackled him, and I swear beat his face in to the point that his face would have been completely covered in blood if it weren't for the heavy rain washing some of it away. He held the man down as I called the police. The tow truck driver arrived on scene first, and he was of course shocked at the unusual scenario he just pulled up to. Police showed up not long after that. It was the most satisfying feeling seeing that man arrested. Not only was he charged criminally, but we pressed charges for the damages to my car. His name is Marcus Green. I never showed up to court. My father and our lawyer did. I didn't want to see that man ever again. The disturbing face he was making, along with seeing him striking my car to break in, is something that will stay with me for a long time.
Alright, now I see another Thunderstorm horror stories. Cause I don't think I've seen this one. Alright, here you go.
I've always loved thunderstorms ever since I was a kid, and so does my 6-year-old son. Anytime there's a storm, my son and I will sit in the backyard under the gazebo and just watch and listen. This was on a hot, stormy August night in...
Hold up. Oh, what's this one? This is 7 months ago.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can do.
All right, hadn't seen this one. This is 7 months ago.
This happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and despite what I want to believe, I think it's still an ongoing issue. I don't exactly live in the woods, but my house is on the outskirts of what I'd call a nature-filled suburb. Lots of trees, wildlife, and that sort of thing. One side of our house borders what I guess you could call a small woods, though it's more accurate to describe it as a wooded patch, since it's only about a quarter mile from our property to the neighboring road on the other side. That road leads up and connects to another street, and on the other side of that road is this massive body of water that I've always been curious about. Growing up, I assumed it was some kind of reservoir since there are tons of no trespassing signs and government property signs posted all along the fence surrounding it. But here's the weird thing. The name of this supposed reservoir isn't listed on Google Maps or Apple Maps, which it definitely would be if it were an actual reservoir. I always found that kind of strange. I've looked it up multiple times over the years and never found any official information on it, but its presence has definitely been an interesting topic of conversation among my siblings and I. I'm on varsity cross country for my school, so I'm always looking for good places to run. That wooded area has become my go-to route because it's exactly a 2-mile loop through that patch of woods, along that road by the water, then back around. It's way quieter than running in my actual neighborhood, which doesn't have sidewalks and has these twisty roads with terrible visibility where people drive way too fast. The season was fast approaching, so I had recently ramped up my runs. The day everything went down, I could have sworn I heard some rustling behind me as I was making my way back through the woods after my run, but I figured it was probably just an animal. Fast forward to that night. During the summer, I always sleep with my windows open. I love the sounds of nature at night, especially when it rains.
Look,
Boy,
y'all,
did it rain that night.
We have so much technology. It has all what we want and what we need. It's simple. Don't mess with your windows at night just to get rain sounds. You have your phone, tablet, laptops, speakers, and Bluetooth for God's sake. But instead of doing what I just mentioned, or suggested that actually, you're going to be fool enough to open your window just to get the rain sounds at night. I feel sorry for him. Whatever happens here, let's see.
A few hours after getting back home, a massive thunderstorm erupted out of nowhere. It was glorious.
Oh, shoot. You get it poured
I was
on.
lying in bed, listening to the rain and thunder when I started drifting off. That's when I heard something that definitely wasn't part of the storm. It was soft at first, but it didn't go away. It was this soft sobbing or crying sound. And the more I listened, the more it sounded like it was coming from right beneath my bedroom window, and the more distinctly human it sounded. As if there was any doubt as to whether the sound could have been the result of the storm, a soft female voice cut through the raindrops. It said, clear as day, "Can you help me? I'm cold." I've never moved so fast in my life. It was like my primal instincts took over before fear could freeze me in place. I burst out of bed, ran to the front door, and sprinted around the side of the house toward my bedroom window. The rain was pelting so hard I was soaked within seconds, but I didn't care. I needed to do something. As scary as hearing that voice was, it had never occurred to me that something sinister was going on. My only thought was that someone was genuinely in danger, and as soon as I turned the corner, there she was. Huddled right underneath my window was a woman wearing white clothing, maybe a nightgown or a dress. She was crouching like she was trying to stay under the small overhang of my window. I approached her cautiously and asked if she needed help. The whole situation felt like a fever dream. But then things went from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. As soon as she noticed me, she sprang up and rushes straight at me with a surge of energy I hadn't expected. Without much time to react, I braced myself for contact.
Where?
Mid-stride, she seemed to hesitate. Maybe she noticed how tall I am. I can't say for sure. But instead of engaging me, she deviated from her collision course and veered off towards the woods. I stood there in shock as she disappeared into the darkness, running impossibly fast for someone with no shoes on. I didn't follow her. I immediately went back inside, still dripping from head to toe, and I woke my dad up. When I told him what happened, he was just as freaked out as I was. We went around and made sure every door and window in the house was locked. We talked about calling the police, but it was already after midnight, and we figured that by the time they showed up, the woman would be long gone. Plus, searching those woods in a thunderstorm seemed like it would be pointless and potentially dangerous for whoever had to do it, if they even agreed to. So we decided to just deal with it in the morning if necessary. I managed to fall back asleep eventually,
and the next couple of days were completely normal. My dad and I chalked the whole thing up to one of two potential explanations: a homeless person looking for shelter, or someone who was mid-mental break. But what happened that night wasn't the end of the ordeal. In fact, it was more like the beginning. Maybe a week after the initial incident, I was going on one of my usual runs. As I was making my way up to the connecting road, I happened to glance through the barbed wire fence at the water. To my surprise, there was actually movement down by the water's edge. I stopped running and looked more closely. There, sitting on the water's edge with her feet dangling in, was a woman. I froze in complete terror. I mean, how was she even there? The fence around that property doesn't have any holes that I've ever seen, and it's topped with barbed wire, not to mention the fact that it's like 10 feet tall to begin with. I must have made some kind of noise. Maybe I gasped or something, because even though I was pretty far away, she suddenly turned her head and looked directly at me. In that moment, there was no doubt in my mind that she was the same woman who had been underneath my bedroom window during that thunderstorm. The moment she saw me, she got up and ran toward the fence with this completely crazed look in her eyes. She pressed her face right against the chain link and just stood there smiling at me, and it was not a normal smile, I'm telling you. I yelled that I was calling the police, hoping that would scare her off, and I guess it did, because as soon as I said that, she turned and dove straight into the water. It was so unsettling and so unnatural that I felt unsafe just standing there. I called 911 immediately and tried to explain the situation. I tried to keep her in sight, but she swam out of view before the police showed up. When they finally did, they took my statement and said they'd investigate the area. They told me to go about my day normally, which I was kind of shocked by. I haven't seen her again since then, but I've started hearing noises outside my bedroom window at night. Not crying like the first time, but just general sounds of someone moving out there. It's making me really paranoid, and I just know something else is going to happen. I've actually been reluctant to go running because I don't want to run into her again. I get that she's probably psychotic and probably followed me home after a run one day, but what remains the biggest mystery to me is how she ended up on the other side of the fence. My sister and I have spent hours looking for a way in there. I'm telling you, it's impossible. My cousin Nick is one of those conspiracy theorist types, and he's convinced that there's something more to the reservoir that the government wants to hide, but I think that's ridiculous. Still, I've never felt more unsettled in my own home.
Tired of sifting through jobs that don't feel like the right fit? Introducing Indeed Career Scout. Find the job that's right for you.
I kept seeing people talk about these free phones from AirTalk, so I gave it a try, and they really delivered it to my...
I'll just go ahead and say it. I'm a middle-aged man in a failed marriage. My wife and I fight over everything. I can't really remember what my wife and I were fighting about this time. Probably something stupid. I ended up storming out of the house, something that happens all too often. Usually I just get a hotel room in a situation like this. I didn't want her chasing after me, so I decided on a different option.
Wow.
I own a piece of property.
So you and your partner are fighting over everything. And then in some cases you prefer to get a hotel room. You ain't sleeping with her tonight, you're gonna sleep by yourself. Because you making yourself like you don't have any other choice but to sleep on a hotel bed at a hotel. Meant to say, like, bruh, I feel you. I feel you. But I'm not blaming the mother. I'm not blaming the I'm not blaming the lady. I'm not blaming the man. I say it's something y'all two got to settle before y'all get that order. Like, I think it's the PPO, personal protective order. Y'all two can't see each other.
property in the middle of nowhere that I'd been meaning to repurpose. I think it used to be a shooting range or something like that. I honestly don't know. The previous owner died, and his estate just wanted to get rid of it. The building itself is this weird concrete block structure with a few warehouse-type rooms downstairs and an office area upstairs. It's actually pretty big, despite being only a few rooms. I figured I'd spend the night there. There was no way she'd be able to find me. I drove the 20 minutes through the increasingly desolate roads, and about halfway there, I noticed dark clouds building up. By the time I got there, I could hear thunder rumbling in the distance. I parked in what used to be a parking lot just as the first drops of rain started falling. I keep a spare set of keys hidden behind a loose piece of siding, which I was able to locate pretty easily. By the time I got settled, the storm had really picked up. The building has metal roofing, and the rain was coming down hard enough that it sounded like someone was dumping gravel on the roof. There's a decently comfortable cot in what I assume used to be the office on the second floor. That's where I'd be sleeping. Once I got settled, I finally felt some peace for the first time in weeks, despite the storm outside. Actually, the sound of the rain was kind of soothing. It made the place feel completely cut off from the world. But of course, nice things never last. Not for me, at least. The moment I started getting drowsy, I was ripped back to reality when the sound of shattering glass broke through the noise of the storm. My heart immediately started pounding. I lay there for maybe 30 seconds, listening over the drumming of rain on the metal roof, trying to figure out what direction the sound had come from. I keep a hunting rifle in one of the adjacent rooms there, mostly so my wife doesn't know I own it. So I grabbed it as quietly as I could and started making my way down the stairs. I stood there at the bottom of the stairwell, listening for something other than the sounds of rain, but there was nothing. Complete silence except for the storm. I decided to search the entire building methodically. I went room by room, rifle ready, checking every closet and corner.
Yeah, get the rifle ready, baby.
I found what I was looking for. One of the boarded up windows had a hole punched through it, with glass scattered on the floor inside. But that was it. There were no signs of entry, and despite the window being shattered, there wasn't enough room for someone to fit through it. Still though, I was paranoid to my core. I spent another 20 minutes examining the property, but I couldn't find anything that even remotely looked out of place. I figured it was probably just vandals who threw a rock through the window and took off when they heard it break. I found some cardboard in one of the other rooms and taped it over the hole, then went back upstairs. I kept the rifle next to the cot just in case, but I was pretty convinced whoever it was had already left. I'm not sure how long I'd been lying there, maybe an hour, when I heard what I thought were footsteps moving below me. It was hard to tell over the rain, but it sounded like someone walking slowly, trying to move quietly under the cover of the storm noise. I again grabbed the rifle and crept to the top of the stairs, this time not risking alerting the intruder by walking down. The footsteps had stopped though, but there was no way they could have heard me. I waited there like a statue for maybe 5 minutes, feeling beads of sweat start forming on my forehead. I ended up searching the place again, but again, there was nothing. I started wondering if I was imagining things or if whoever had been there had snuck out before I noticed them. That didn't explain how all the doors were still locked though. This time, I went outside into the pouring rain and searched the perimeter with my phone's flashlight. There were no vehicles nearby or any signs that someone had been there. It was starting to freak me out. Part of me wished I'd find something just to assure myself I wasn't going crazy. I went back upstairs and tried to rationalize what I heard. Between the rain on the metal roof and the general creaking that old buildings do during storms, there were a dozen explanations for sounds that might seem like footsteps. I tried to focus on getting some sleep, telling myself I was being paranoid, but that wasn't the end of it. Before I could even settle in again, I heard what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor below me. This was different, not something that could be explained by the storm. The unmistakable sound of something heavy being pushed or pulled across concrete is not something a storm could create, not in a million years. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the rifle and stormed downstairs, flipping on every light switch I could find. I was getting angry now, which was probably better than being scared. I yelled out into the darkness that I wasn't messing around, that I was armed, and that I wasn't afraid to defend myself or my property. My voice echoed through the empty rooms and then died away into silence. Nothing had been moved and no one answered me. You might be wondering why I didn't call the police at that point. It was partly because I wasn't sure what I'd tell them, but mostly because the property isn't completely up to code, and that's putting it generously. The last thing I needed was to bring official attention to the place, but standing
I cannot agree more.
there in that empty building, rifle in hand, yelling into the darkness, something suddenly shifted. In an instant, my frustrated anger transformed into pure, cold fear. It was more than just a changing attitude. It was like something icy washed over me. I could feel it, and every instinct I had was screaming at me to get as far away from that place as possible. I don't know what triggered it exactly, but I knew I had to leave. I quickly gathered my things, returned the rifle to its hiding place, and turned off all the lights. The storm was still raging outside, but I didn't care. I locked up the building and drove back home through the worst of the weather. It's been a little while since that happened, but I plan to go back in a few days, or whenever I have time, really. I want to go back and investigate. Maybe install some kind of security system to see if anything's actually happening there, or if it was just my imagination. As far as what actually happened that night, I have no idea. Either someone was actually there and was able to hide from me, or I'm starting to lose my mind. I don't know which is scarier. I really don't want to think about any kind of third possibility, because that scares me even more.
It sure would.
Jeez, Bob, too much more of that, and maybe I won't be dead by 35.
My name is Jason. I live in a pretty rural area where you have to drive at least half an hour to get to anywhere interesting. This happened to me 3 Fridays ago. My buddy Leo and I had driven out to this house party a few towns over. It wasn't a big banger or anything, just one of those chill gatherings where people hang out in someone's backyard playing beer pong and listening to music. A little college-y, to be honest, but there's not much to do around my neck of the woods if I'm being real. I was the DD that night, so I'd been nursing the same beer for like 3 hours while Leo was doing his usual thing, getting progressively louder and more philosophical as the night went on. He was pretty plastered by the time we left around 1 a.m., which was funny up until I realized I'd become his de facto babysitter. After finally dragging him away from the girl he was flirting with, I ushered him into my car to make the 20-something minute drive back home. The weather had gotten pretty nasty while we were at the party, though. What started as a somewhat refreshing drizzle had become a torrential downpour that made it hard to see more than 30 feet ahead. I had to slow down to like 30 on roads I'd normally tear through at like 60. Leo kept complaining, first about my driving, then about the music, and finally about how badly he needed to piss. I told him we were 15 minutes from home max, but he kept going on about it. His tantrum was becoming insufferable, so after another 5 minutes of him whining, I gave up. I pulled over on this random stretch of road next to what looked like cornfields, though it was hard to tell in the dark and rain. We were literally in the middle of nowhere, no houses visible, no streetlights, just farmland on both sides of the road. I told him he could go ahead and get soaked for all I care, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't listening because he was already halfway out the car before I was even finished talking. He practically fell out of the passenger seat and stumbled off toward the field, disappearing within seconds. The rain was coming down hard enough that I could barely see him once he got 10 feet away. The literal moment he staggered out of sight, I remember I had an umbrella in my back seat. I sat there for a minute with the engine running, but then figured I might as well take advantage of the stop too. So I grabbed my umbrella, locked the door out of habit, and walked off in the opposite direction from where Leo had gone. I found a spot maybe 20 yards from the car, right at the edge of where the gravel met the crops. As I was standing there, I could have sworn I heard something rustling back near the car, something other than the deafening sounds of the storm. Without altering my stance, I looked back over my shoulder toward the car, but didn't see anything. I had the keys in my pocket and knew I locked the car, so I didn't think much of it. I finished up and headed back, surprised to find that Leo wasn't standing by the car yet. A few minutes passed, then 5, then another 5. Still no Leo, though. I was getting pissed. What should have been a quick 20-minute drive home was turning into this whole 45-minute ordeal, and I had to be up early the next morning. I was about to honk the horn when I saw movement in the side mirror. Leo was sprinting toward the passenger door, and even through the rain and darkness, I could tell something was wrong. The second he got in, before he even had the door closed, he was screaming at me to drive. As if some kind of survival instinct activated in me, I pulled out of there as fast as I could, but with the rain and all, it wasn't like I could speed. Leo started explaining that while he was doing his business, he saw what he thought was me somewhere to his right. The person started walking deeper into the field, and Leo, in his drunk logic, thought I was messing with him, or maybe that I was drunker than I'd let on. So he followed. He said he followed for a while, not entirely sure what I was doing and too drunk to analyze the situation properly. Eventually,
don't get too drunk at a young age, because your liver will hate you for a period of time.
the figure turned around, and Leo realized it definitely wasn't me. He said he couldn't make out any details in the darkness, but it was clearly someone else. The whole explanation took maybe 30 seconds, but before he could even finish talking, I felt the car start drifting sharply to the right, and then came the unmistakable sound of a flat tire. It was literally a worst-case scenario. Continuing the drive was not an option. The car was pulling way too much. Reluctantly, I pulled over. We were maybe half a mile from where we'd originally stopped. Not close enough for it to be an immediate danger, but not exactly far enough for me to feel comfortable. I snapped at Leo to get out of the car and help me out, since he was responsible for landing us in this mess. But when I walked around the car to inspect the flat, my anger at Leo became fear. Pure fear. There, lodged in the sidewall of my rear passenger tire, was a screwdriver. There was about a 0% chance that it happened coincidentally. Someone had jammed it in there, and with force too, judging from how deep the puncture was. Leo started freaking out, but I snapped at him to get it together. The two of us rushed to change the tire, which was especially nerve-wracking in the pouring rain. I didn't want to think about who had sabotaged my car or why.
Just look at that. I would want to hurt the person that flattened my tire on purpose. I want to find out who and why, and better find a good logical reason. Even though I know how to take the tire off, but listen, why? I'd rather have a check engine light than a sign that I have a flat. Because that is a big bad case scenario. If you're in a storm with thunder and lightning, thunderstorm, and you're driving, and you get a flat, I would want to know who, I want to know when, and I want to know one more reason. Why? Do you know how much tires cost nowadays? Exactly.
But with every passing second, my hands got shakier and shakier. I felt like someone was going to catch up to us at any moment. The fear was so sickening, I actually started feeling nauseous, which is something that no nightmare can ever match. I was finishing tightening up the last lug nuts when all of a sudden, a scream rang out from somewhere behind us. It was clearly a woman's scream, which made the situation 10 times scarier since the person Leo claimed to have seen was a man. I threw the tools in the trunk, ditched the tire, and got back in the car as fast as I could. But as I was pulling away, Leo started tugging my arm, saying that we had to go back because someone was in trouble. I told him there was no way I was going back, even though a part of me felt like I was making the wrong decision. Leo called 911 as I drove away, giving the operator our location, or as close as he could figure it. Leo was furious with me the whole ride home, saying someone could be dying back there, but I couldn't bring myself to turn the car around. I was just too afraid. I didn't say much until we were pulling into my driveway, trying to ignore Leo calling me out for being a coward and whatnot. Instead of dropping Leo off, the two of us sat in my driveway to try and make sense of everything. Leo was convinced that the scream came from someone who was being attacked or stalked by the person he'd seen, and he felt guilty that we had just driven away instead of helping. But I wasn't so sure about that theory. If someone was out there doing something sinister to another person, why would they ever draw attention to themselves by puncturing a passing car's tire? To me, that seemed like the last thing you'd want to do if you were trying to hurt someone without being caught.
Exactly.
Plus, if there really were a woman in trouble, she would have been able to see our car and headlights when we first pulled over. Why wait until after we had driven off to call for help? It didn't make any sense, and as I was explaining my rationale to Leo, I finally felt that I could vocalize what had, until then, just been a gut feeling telling me to get out of there. The scream must have been part of some kind of trap, like maybe there were multiple people out there. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility. But even that theory doesn't make much sense, which writing this all out is making me realize. Actually, that theory sounds equally as absurd. Who in their right mind would stop their car on that random road at that hour of the night? There's no way someone could have hatched a plot to lure a traveler out of their car there, in the pouring rain no less. Leo and I argued back and forth about it for a while, ultimately agreeing to disagree. I called the police station the next morning to see if they had found anything, but they said their officers had searched the area and found no evidence of anyone being there. Even more strangely, they hadn't found my tire either, which threw yet another wrinkle into things. Although I guess it's possible they just weren't looking in the right place. A few days later, Leo suggested that maybe it was actually the woman, not the man, who had punctured my tire, maybe trying to draw our attention. Why they would do that instead of scream, I have no idea. The whole thing honestly has no explanation that sits right with me, but I really don't want to think about what it would mean if Leo is right. If there really had been someone in trouble out there whose fate I sealed by driving away.
Alright, y'all. I think it's going to be the end of the, hold up. This will be the end of the reaction for today, but I may do some more later on. So, yep. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment what story did you like the most. And I apologize for pausing so much, but it's all right though. I had to point some some little keynotes and asking like why this, why that. Like that's what it it's necessary to do that. But I'll see y'all in the next one. And peace.